Hello and welcome to this lab demonstration on enabling and configuring vSphere Trust Authority. At the beginning of this lab, we already need to be familiar with the concept of the vSphere Trust Authority. In this lab, we will export the TPM certificate, the ESXi image metadata, and the trusted user principal. Then we will enable vSphere Trust Authority services and import the trusted host information to the Trust Authority cluster. After that, we are going to create a trusted key provider on the Trusted Authority cluster. Then we will export the Trust Authority cluster settings and import the Trust Authority cluster settings into the Trusted Host cluster. And finally, we are going to configure the trusted key provider for the trusted hosts. I'm sure I provided you enough good reasons to watch the following video on enabling and configuring vSphere Trust Authority. So let's get started. In order to begin with this lab, we need to go to our menu, Hosts and Clusters, and we are going to rename two our specifically pre-configured clusters, which we are going to use in this lab. The first one is our Trust Authority cluster under SA Data Center under SA VCSA01. So let's right click on it and let's choose the rename option for it. Let's call it SA Trusted Cluster 01. SA Trusted Cluster 01. Let's click OK here. Now it is renamed, and let's repeat this step to our SB cluster under our SB VCSA01 vClass local. So let's rename it to, let's call it SB VTA cluster 01, and let's click OK. So now we need to log out from our vSphere client. And now we're going to continue this lab using the Power CLI tool. So let's go. During our next tasks on exporting TPM certificates and so on, we are going to use the Trust Authority Power CLI. And during this lab, you may either configure all that commands using just your own keys, your own keyboard and so on, or in order to avoid some mistyping or in order to speed up, you can use a specifically pre-configured file, which we can find in our lab environment. It is located on our disk C. If we go to Materials, Downloads. So here this file is located, VTA.txt. If I open it, I can find all the commands which we are going to use in every particular task in this lab. So I'm going to use this file too in order to speed this process up a bit. So in our task number 2, we are going to, and in all our tasks, we are going to connect to some specific resource. We are going to perform some configuration through the command line, and then we are going to disconnect from a specific resource. So every next task will be quite like this particular, according to this particular plan. So in our task number 2, we are going to connect to our SA ESXi 08 vClass local ESXi host as the root username with a specified password. So let's copy this command and paste it to our Power CLI Trust Authority module. So now we are connected to this particular host. And next, as long as we do not want to type this long SA ESXi 08 long name, we can actually assign this particular name to a specified variable, which we are going to use, VM host variable. So let's do it. Next, what we are going to do, we are going to get a trusted platform module endorsement key from this particular host. Let's use this command for doing that. Copy and paste. So now we have received this particular key. We can see only the beginning of it in order to for us not to be disturbed by the long public key of this particular device. We can see only one line of it. We can inspect this particular endorsement key here. And now we are going to assign this TPM endorsement key to a new variable. Let's call this variable a TPM2. Let's copy this command here. Just a second. Let's copy it. So now we are going to assign a get TPM endorsement key from our VM host to a TPM2 variable. Let's do it. Next, we're using this TPM endorsement key. We are going to export the TPM device certificate authority certificate to our CVTA directory on our desktop. So let's export the TPM SA certificate using our endorsement key TPM2 to a specific file SA cert zip. So let's copy this command. And the process is completed. This file is now saved in our CVTA location. Now what we are going to do, we are going to export the ESXi image metadata from our ESXi host and place it to an image.tgz file. So let's copy this command. And the last step here, we are going to disconnect from our server. Our next tasks will require the usage of our vCenters. So let's disconnect from our server. And here we are. Now, let's continue with our task number 3. Here we are going to export the trusted user principal. So now we're going to use the same command as previous, connect VI server, but now we are going to connect to our SA VCSA01 vCenter server as our trusted admin username. Remember the lab number 9, where we have added this particular user to a trusted admins group. So now let's use this particular username to connect to our vCenter. Let's copy it and paste it here. Now we are connected to our SA VCSA01 vClass local. Let's export the trusted principal to a particular JSON file, which we are going to call principal.json. We're going to use this a bit later. Let's copy it. So here it is done. Now we can continue with our task number 4 without disconnecting from this particular vServer, or I'm sorry, here we need to disconnect because our next task requires us to use the different vCenter server. So let's continue. Our next task is to enable vSphere Trust Authority services on the vSphere Trust Authority cluster. So now we are going to disconnect from our previous vCenter SA VCSA0. And now we are going to continue with our SBVCSA01. So let's copy the string for it. Now we are connected to our SBVCSA01. Let's get the current trusted services state of the trusted authority cluster. Let's see it by this particular command. Here we can see that its state is in disabled. We are going to enable it a bit later. Let's assign a new variable, which we are going to use the trusted authority cluster by using the get trust authority cluster sbvta cluster 01 command. Let's copy it. Here it is. This variable currently has the new value. And now let's enable trusted services on the trusted authority cluster. Let's set trust authority cluster of our trust authority cluster variable, state enabled, copy, and now this process is completed. Now we can see that the trusted authority cluster state is enabled right now. Now, next, let's verify this information again. Let's copy. Just a second. Let's copy it and paste it here. Now we can see again that our trusted authority cluster state is enabled. What we are going to do next? In our next task, we are going to continue our journey with SBVCSA 01. So in our next task, we are going to import the trusted host information to the trust authority cluster. So let's continue. We are going to use the new trust authority principal command for our TA cluster and our previously saved file with the name of principal.json. So let's copy it. And paste it here. Now, what we are going to do next? We are going to verify that this previous import was successful. We are going to see that it will return the trusted user principal from the trusted cluster. Let's use the command get trust authority principal for our TA cluster. Let's copy it and let's paste it here. So now we can see that this information is provided here for our trusted authority cluster, again as the string of information from our previous command. Next, what we are going to do? We are going to import the TPM certificate authority certificate from the trusted cluster into a trusted authority cluster by using this command, new trust authority TPM CA certificate with the name of TPM CA for our trusted authority cluster TA cluster from our previously downloaded file with the name ca-cert-zip. So let's copy it and paste it here. So now it's imported. This step dictates which TPM devices are trusted by the trusted authority cluster. Now let's import the ESXi image metadata from the trusted cluster into the trust authority cluster by using the command which we can find here, new trust authority VM host base image for our TA cluster from the file which is called image tgz. Let's copy it and paste it here. So now the health state is okay. Again, we may not need to disconnect from our SBVCSA01 as long as our next task also includes some actions with our SBVCSA01 vCenter server. So let's continue. In our next task, we are going to create a trusted key provider on the trust authority cluster so that the trust authority cluster can request encryption keys from the key management server. So again, we are already connected to our SBVCSA01 vClass local vCenter, so we do not need to do this command again. Now we are going to add the key management server called sbkms01 as a trust authority key provider. So let's copy this command here. We're going to use the KMIP server with the IP address as 172.20.110.193. Let's copy it. Now the connection is established and the master key ID is assigned to 1. Next, we are going to assign the key provider to a variable, to a simple variable which we are going to use. It will be KP, just as simple. Let's copy it. So we are going to assign the result of a get trust authority key provider command to our KP variable for our TA cluster. So here we are. Now, what we are going to do next? We are going to create the trusted key provider client certificate. Let's do it with the command new trust authority key provider client certificate from our KP key provider. So let's do it, copy and paste it here. Now, what we are going to do next? We are going to return the KMS certificate. Let's get it. So currently it's in a trusted false state. It's normal right now. What we are going to do next? We are going to assign the KMS certificate to a variable, to a cert variable here. Let's use the command which is get trust authority key provider server certificate for our key provider KP key provider servers. Let's copy it, copy and paste it here. Now, what we are going to do next? We are going to add the KMS certificate to the trusted key provider in a trusted state. So let's add trust authority key provider server certificate for our cert variable. Let's copy it and paste it here. And now it is in trusted true state for our particular lab environment. What we are going to do next? In our task number 7, we are going to export the settings for the trust authority cluster. What we are going to do next? Again, we are going to proceed with our SB VCSA01 vClass local, so we do not need to disconnect from it and connect to it again. What we are going to do is we are going to export the trust authority cluster information from the VTA directory on our desktop. So let's copy this command, copy and paste it here. Now, this file contains information about the trust authority attestation services and key provider services. Again, now we actually need to disconnect from our SBVCSA01 vCenter here. So let's copy this command and paste it here. And now we are going to connect to our SA VCSA vCenter. So let's go to it. And now we are going to import the trust authority cluster settings into the trusted host cluster to establish a connection to the trust authority cluster. So now we are going to assign the trusted or attested cluster to a variable. Let's call it trusted cluster by using the command get trusted cluster SA trusted cluster 01. Let's copy it and paste it here. Now, we are going to import the Trust Authority cluster information by using the command import Trust Authority Services info from the file path VTA cluster settings JSON. Let's copy it. And now we are going to enable the trusted cluster. Let's use the command set trusted cluster state enabled. Now it's enabled, and now we need to disconnect from our vCenter for us to be able to complete this task. So the last part of this particular lab is going to be again in our vCenter. So let's return to our SAVCSA01. Let's log in as trusted admin at vSphere.local with our password. So here we need to go to a menu, hosts and clusters. Let's close the expiring license information right now. Now what we need to do, we need to choose our SAVCSA01 vClass local and go to a configure tab. Here we need to go to a security key providers sections. So let's go to security key providers section here. Now we need to add trusted key providers here. So let's click on the button which is called add trusted key providers. And now we need to choose our SB KMS01, which is in a connected state. Let's click on this particular checkbox. Let's click on add key providers. And now we can see that this particular key provider, here we can see only one of them, and it is automatically set to a default state. Its type is trusted and its connection status is in connected state. So our lab is completed. And congratulations, you have completed the enabling the configuring vSphere Trust Authority lab demonstration video. During this lab, we have seen how and where we can export the TPM certificate, the ESXi image metadata, and the trusted user principle. What do we need to do to enable the vSphere Trust Authority services and import the trusted host information to the Trust Authority cluster? Next, we have seen how to create a trusted key provider on the Trusted Authority cluster, how we can export the Trust Authority cluster settings and import the Trust Authority cluster settings into the trusted host cluster, and finally, how we can configure the trusted key provider to the trusted hosts. Thank you for watching this lab demonstration video. I hope the knowledge acquired here will help you with your daily job assignments, and good luck as you continue your journey in VMware world.